Operation Confidence and LA Talk Radio proudly presents America's Invisible Heroes radio talk show. Tune in weekly on Sundays, 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific Time, with your hosts, Consuelo Mackey, U.S. Army veteran and co-host Matt Davison, announcer Taylor Marcella, and Brooke Gadesi, U.S. Army veteran and entertainment segment host Charles Whitehead, Veterans and Legal segment host, attorney Danielle Sherrod, U.S. Army Veterans and Lifeline for Women Veterans segment host Martha Elena Varela, Veterans in Recovery host Anthony Akinpora, and U.S. Air Force veteran and Incarceration to Success segment host Kevin Lewandowski. For more information or to be a guest on our show, email info@operationconfidence.org.
And happy 4th of July. Thank you for tuning in to America's Invisible Heroes, a show dedicated to our veterans and their families. And yes, I'm your host, Consuelo Mackey, Executive Director of a grassroots nonprofit organization called Operation Confidence. For those who may be new to the show, American Invisible Heroes strives to provide a platform for veterans and their families who have shared some amazing experiences, heartfelt stories, resources, challenges, and accomplishments. Now, I'd like to introduce you to my wonderful co-host, Air Force veteran and Operation Confidence board member, Matt Davison, U.S. Army Reserve and board member, Charles Whitehead.
I'd like to say thank you to all of our veterans and their families.
That's for sure. And then Brooke Gadasky, she's a board member and an announcer. Taylor Marcellus, board member, also an announcer. And we have Anthony, please forgive me, Campapora. He's actually has a segment called Veterans in Recovery. Tony, your last name is always a tongue tie for me, so please forgive me. And we have also Ann Montague. She has a segment on every other week, and her segment is called the Rosie's Movement. And then last but not least, we have Chaplain Wendy Childress. She has a monthly segment called Families, Wellness, Living Life Completely. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
Same here. I'd like to let everyone know that not only is Operation Confidence, American Invisible Heroes on LA Talk, but we also announced on YouTube. We have our own channel. So please tune us in on that channel. Now, we want to turn it over to our wonderful, wonderful host, co-host, and that's my good friend, board member, Matt. Take it away, Matt.
All right, Connie. Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary Dennis McDonough promised Monday that he would renew the agency's focus on a major project to house homeless veterans in Los Angeles. McDonough delivered the opening address Monday for the annual meeting of the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, a nonprofit that coordinates efforts to end veteran homelessness with Congress, the White House, and local state and federal agencies that provide services to homeless veterans. The group testified to Congress last week about their concerns that an unprecedented wave of homelessness could hit the United States as the unemployment assistance granted during the coronavirus pandemic comes to an end and the country lifts its moratorium on evictions. Even before the pandemic began, veteran homelessness has risen slightly. In January 2020, 37,252 veterans were experiencing homelessness, an increase of 167 veterans from January 2019. At that time, nearly 10% of all homeless veterans lived in Los Angeles. And of the 3,681 homeless veterans in Los Angeles, 76% were living on the street. For about 5 years, the VA has been working on a plan to build 1,200 subsidized apartments for homeless veterans on the campus of the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center. McDonough acknowledged Monday that the efforts had taken too long. And of the 1,200 apartments, only 54 have been finished, McDonough said. We have to move faster, he said. There are a lot of reasons for the delays, and we're going to solve them. McDonough vowed to give his approval on a master plan for the project by the end of the year, and we can only hope that his plan succeeds. Thank you.
That's right. Wonderful information. Thank you, Matt. Now, Brooke, turn it over to you, girlfriend. I'm sorry, that's Taylor. Please forgive me.
Okay. Sure, Connie. I'd like to introduce returning host, Chaplain Captain Wendy Childress, who has a monthly segment entitled Family Wellness Living Life Completely. Our retired Army chaplain, Captain Childress, is currently a life coach and resident in Southern California and a proud mother of one beautiful, artistic, and creative adult daughter. Together, they enjoy traveling and are working on starting a nonprofit organization for African American youth. Chaplain Childress' guest today is Major retired John R. Lockley, retired. Major John R. Lockley is a New Yorker with a degree in automotive engineering in the Army for more than 25 years and made history in 1978 by becoming the first African American to lead the ROTC cadet program. He is an ordained minister and is currently pursuing his master's degree in pastoral counseling at Liberty University. Take it away, Chaplain Childress. And can we start off first with a quick?
Of course, I'll start off with a quick prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we first of all thank you for this day. We give you all the honor, the glory, and the praise, Lord, because you alone are worthy. Father, we thank you for all those that have served and for the families that serve along with them because they don't serve by themselves, Father. We thank you for them and their lives, and we ask that you continue to watch over each and every one of us and all of those under the sound of my voice. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray. We pray. Amen.
Thank you.
All right. I'm just going to repeat a little bit because Taylor, you kind of faded out, and I don't know if I was the only one hearing that. But
No,
John,
she did.
okay. Major John Lockley, retired, is a native New Yorker, and I think that's important to him. So kind of faded out there. And in addition, he was also there in 2001 during the World Trade Center bombing.
Wow.
And he was there during that time. And he also has a lovely wife, Brenda, who he's been married to for over 37 years, 2 beautiful daughters and a beautiful granddaughter. And I am going to go ahead again and introduce John. John, if you can unmute yourself now.
There we go.
All right, there you go. So John, if you would, can you give us a little background about your military history?
Believe it or not, I started in the military last century, which was 1977. It was last century, but I actually had a draft card and went to college in order not to go to Vietnam. Well, life does change, and in 1977, I joined the ROTC program in Hofstra University, became their first commandant, African-American commandant, and it was a basically all-white school, which was fine with me. I had no issues with that, and was commissioned field artillery, 1981. There I served as the subject matter expert fielding in the multiple launch rocket system, and eventually became a commander, started training basic training soldiers, taught the 198 rocket, did the Lance missile system in Germany, And in 1988, decided to go reserves, where I took my job full-time as New York City Transit Authority, started selling clerks, started selling tokens. And from there, went and got promoted to train operator, to command center, where I dispatched trains, and eventually a senior manager. I retired in 2010. First, before I continue any further, I want to give a shout out to first to God, and also to my wife of 37 years, who's been with me at my side. We both been together, 2 grown kids, wonderful children, and a grown granddaughter who still lives with us. It's a wonderful child, so we're quite thankful. And yes, I was 3 blocks away from the World Trade Center in September 11th. Actually, I was supposed to be on the grounds where the building fell. And it was
Wow.
just the grace of God that kept delaying my arrival to the building. And that's why I am here sitting to y'all today.
Mhm.
I walked through 8 inches of ash. What a lot of people don't know, there were 3 buildings that fell instead of the 2 that you see on TV. There was the tower, the North Tower, the South Tower, and then about 10 minutes after 5 was Tower 7, which housed the Secret Service. It housed the gold and a lot of other buildings. It was a 51-story building that fell at 10 minutes after 5, and I was a block away when that fell.
Wow.
So
It's amazing.
needless to say, and another fact about that is people don't know that that building burned for 3 months.
Wow.
Really?
It burned for 3 months because what had happened, there was 110 stories worth of building that got compressed into 12 stories worth of debris. So all of the burning that you saw was compressed into this one area in Lower Manhattan. As they continue to pull the steel frames and foundation up, it would reignite. They put it out, take a body out, it would reignite, pull the frame, pull the steel out, reignite. For 3 months, that building burned. And eventually they removed all the steel and all the bodies. Is now what you see is hollow ground. I have walked it in building the subway construction there. I've been there many times and went back as a tourist 2 years ago, and it brought back many, many memories. So
Wow.
there's a lot there.
That's an amazing life you had. Goodness.
And
Are you writing a book?
I had thought about it.
You should. That's something that you need to leave as a legacy.
Since I'm talking to y'all, it never really crossed my mind, but I probably need to do that after I finish my master's course, because I did promise my wife I wanted to finish my master's. I made that promise.
Right.
So I'm about 6 classes away from finishing, and that's an idea I think I will do. Thank you, Ms. Kinsella. I think I'll do that. Yes.
And I have someone to refer you to too. They're writing my book as we speak.
That'll be awesome. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I think
You know,
I'll do
and
that. That's a good idea.
as I was listening to you, it seems like you have always had a dual career. You've always been military and civilian. So
Right.
did that make it easier for you to transition when you retired?
Actually, it made it harder.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am. And I'll tell you why. If you know, there's this thing called the DISC survey, and it tells you a type of personality, whether or not you're dominant or an introvert or a sanguine or whatever. And I was a very type A personality. New York Transit is a very A-type driven society, and being a senior manager, I responded to collisions, derailments, incidents, whatever there was a problem, I would respond to that. So being in the military and being in a A-driven society, when I retired in 2010, it was like everything was taken away. Okay. I did not expect that type of response. I figured, okay, I'm retired now. I can go lay down, do nothing. No, that didn't happen. It took literally a year to almost 2 years to get to a point where I was comfortable with myself.
Wow.
It really did. You get used to a structure, you get used to a routine. Even now, 11 years after retirement, I still wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
I have a question for you, sir.
Say that again?
What? I said, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you had a draft card, but you got out of going to Viet. So what was it that pushed you toward the military?
That's a good question. I liked what it offered. I liked the challenge. And when I was in Hofstra, I had went to the ROTC office, and the gentleman says, "You'll never be an officer." I said, "Yes, I will." So it was a challenge. I try to stay away from the race card because we're all humans and we're all vets. But it was the officer who said, "I never become field artillery," and he became my reason to do it. And it became fun after that. Not
Wow.
only did I become commissioned, but I became the first commandant of an African American nature to run an all-white ROTC program.
Well, that was a blessing for you and everybody else.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right.
There were 300 cadets there, and from having no military background to become a commander a year later was a blessing for me, and I enjoyed that.
Congratulations. That's wonderful information.
Do I
Thank you.
have time for one more question for him, Consuela?
Yeah, please. We're sort of running out, but please.
Okay, just real quick. So
We
I
have-
just want to know, what is it that you're doing now? You're working on your master's at Liberty, and what is your goal with that?
My goal with that is to help leaders. If I can take about 30 seconds, what I found out in the military, that as you start to develop rank, your higher ups expect you to know, your subordinates want you to fail, and the people you lead really expect you to know the answers. So at certain points in your life, you have really no one to talk to. You don't have an advice, you don't have a mentor, because of the fact that your peers expect you to be there, and also who you're leading expect you to know. So my goal in pastoral counseling is to have a place for pastors, leaders, ministers, even lay people to come and say, "You know what, I need to talk to somebody," and feel safe about it without being judged, without being criticized, and without being looked at as a failure, because they and all of us are human, and we do need somebody to talk to.
Amen to that.
That
Thank
was
you.
great. Thank you so much, sir. And we really want you to come back with all that wealth of information. And as you continue your career, come back and share some more with us, please.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
you know,
I'm in
Miss,
New York City
you know-
right now, so.
all right. You know, the chaplain has a monthly show, so you make sure you keep in contact and come back, please.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate the time and sharing with you all.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Okay, so Brooke, take it away, girlfriend.
You got it, Connie. I would like to introduce Anthony Akampora, whose name I will get wrong every week. I apologize.
I did it
Got it.
too.
Got it.
I apologize. I apologize too, Tony.
Tony,
She got it.
thank you. Tony hosts the segment entitled Veterans in Recovery. Tony's a chaplain and faith program director at Banyan Treatment Center and an ordained minister, speaker, and writer with articles published in numerous national magazines. The Banyan Treatment Centers is a nationwide facility whose mission is to provide growth through recovery for offering all levels of care, from detoxification to outpatient services, and a strong alumni program. The Banyan Center says it's important to learn how to live life without drugs and alcohol, with a goal to empower everyone to live a life with long-term recovery. Take it away, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, it's not an easy name to pronounce. I've been going through it for a long time, but you nailed it. So thank you. I was gonna talk a little bit today about some of the things that we encounter at Banyan Treatment Centers, what I encounter as a chaplain and as a faith program director, mainly with our veterans, but also with just in general with people that are dealing with mental health disorders or addiction or both, which a lot of times they kind of go hand in hand. It's called dual diagnosis or co-occurring disorders, and they you know, it could start off with the mental health disorder, go into addiction, or vice versa. But so one of the things that seems like it's kind of a common denominator, not with all that we have, but a lot of them, they're dealing with regrets. Some of them are dealing with anger as well. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about this, and hopefully, you know, any of our listeners or anything will benefit from this. So I think the regret part comes from, with the people that are dealing with active addiction, from the things that they did and didn't do during active addiction. You know, there's a saying, hurt people hurt people. So most cases, somebody that's dealing with an addiction and or mental health disorder is hurting. They're in pain. They're in emotional pain. So out of that, they start to medicate that and try to mask that pain with drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever the case may be. And they do things that they normally wouldn't do, and they end up with a lot of regrets. So quick definition of regrets. Regrets is defined as unfulfilled or unattained intentions that a person wishes they had done, or things that they haven't done. So it's interesting, that definition, and it kind of goes right into what I was going to talk about as far as with the veterans, because these are some things that are going to keep us in a state of regret. Acts that we committed but wish we hadn't, right? And that's a big thing with a lot of times combat veterans that we're dealing with. So, and then acts that we didn't commit but we wish we had. And also it's another major thing with either veterans or just people in general, because, you know, with the front part of our brain being impaired, we're doing insane things that we really normally wouldn't do. So you end up having a lot of shame, and you have a lot of guilt, and you have a lot of regrets. And usually that also turns into anger, right? So those are the two main things. The two other ones are, as far as regrets go, acts that others committed that you wish they hadn't, and then acts that others didn't commit that you wish they had. So those are kind of the main ones and the things with regrets. And again, it goes into, oftentimes I've dealt with a lot of veterans. We have one in the program now that's been there for a while. And thank God that he has, because the first month and a half, 2 months, if he was ever released or discharged then, it would not have been a good situation. And so we're blessed with the program that we have through the VA that is allowing our veterans to get the treatment that they deserve and they need. And this guy is a great example of it. But this guy had tremendous anger, and he was one of our first veterans in the program. And I would be doing a group, and he would just stand up and start screaming and yelling and throwing stuff. And he hated the country. He hated God. I mean, this guy was just filled with rage, right? And so it was a long journey, but he's doing so amazing right now. And we're just so blessed. And we've had other ones that very similar situations. So just with the anger real quick, I just kind of want to give an acronym out. And I just said this in a group the other day, and this same guy, this veteran, said that's something he's never heard, and it really helped him, because he's still dealing with anger here and there. So here's the acronym if you're dealing with anger. Think, THINK. And if you go through this, which I do sometimes, T, is it true? Because oftentimes we think someone said something, someone did something, something happened along the way, and it's not even true, right? So is it true? H, is it helpful, right? Is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? Is what I'm about to text and what I'm about to say to someone, is that going to inspire them, or is it going to tear down a rapport and cause more problems? This is the one that gets me, the N, right? So it's THIN, the think is the acronym. N, is it necessary? And I've got caught up on this one a lot. I'm sending out an email. Is it really necessary to copy their boss and their boss's boss on this to make them look even worse and get them even more upset? Is it going to escalate the situation, or are we trying to diffuse it? So N, is it necessary? And then the last one If the necessary doesn't get me, the K always gets me. Is it kind? Is it kind? Because oftentimes when we're reacting out of emotion, out of anger, it's really not going to be too kind. Paul tells us in Ephesians, speak in truth and love. Truth and love. So, I mean, I worked in Manhattan for almost 7 years. They have the truth part down. They'll tell you exactly how they feel and what's going on. You knew where they stood. The loving part might have been a little off. So if we could get both of those together, speak in truth, be assertive, say what we mean what we say, be transparent, get this stuff out. And that's what we tell our clients. Don't push it down anymore. Don't suppress it. It's toxic. Get it out, but try to do it in a loving way. And those are some of the things that we do at Banyan, treatment centers on a daily basis in our Faith and Recovery program. And it's a blessing to be able to work with, especially the veterans. We're getting a lot of different veterans in, and they deserve it. They deserve everything that they've done for us. They deserve proper treatment, and they deserve the time to heal. So that's
what we're all about, Tony. And thank you. That was some great information. Now you have an amazing guest coming on next week. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah.
Before you do that, you didn't tell us the locations.
Oh yeah. Banyan Treatment Centers is national. There's 14 locations. The one in California is in Palm Springs. There's Texas, there's Chicago, Boston, 5 in Florida. And it's a substance abuse and mental health center. So that's what we focus on. And we started getting veterans in through the VA program about 8 months ago. And so I'm the chaplain there, and I'm the director of the Faith program. And we'd love to have more, the better. We just want to help as many people as possible.
So we're going to have that information on our website. So please text me what you want us to make sure we have as far as how to contact you personally. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Tell us about your guest for next week.
Next week, we have confirmed Dr. David Salkin, who is the former VA secretary. He was also the undersecretary under Barack Obama's administration. And we're blessed to have him. I've been dealing with him since we started this veterans program, and he's always been very responsive. He's always answered questions. And he's going to be on this show at this time next week. So we're really excited about that. And if anybody has anything they want to ask him, I know Matt's going to be asking things, and Connie, and just kind of feel free to do that. And I think it's going to be awesome. So we're excited about that.
Oh, very much so. And I'm just so honored that he's coming on our little itty bitty show. Thank you so much. All right. Well, Charles, we're going to turn it over to you. You have some amazing guests to introduce.
All right. That's right. I'd like to introduce returning host Ann Montage. Is that right? Montag or Montage? Anyway.
You muted, Ann. Still, there you go.
There you go. It's Montague. It's like
Montague.
Romeo was a Montague, so that's my claim to fame.
Well, okay then. We'll get this right. That's why I said, let's get this right. We don't want to start off wrong. Ann Montague, a daughter of a Rosie and executive director of Rosie's Movement. Ann's guest is Dottie Foster, born Dorothy Johnson in Lancaster, England. She moved to Cheshire County at 10 years old and worked in Manchester County during the war. It had a strong industrial history, had the first railway station, hosted the first meeting of the Trades Union Congress, and is where scientists first split the atom and developed the first programmable computer. She worked at Broadheath in a factory that had converted from making linotype to, I'm all twisted today, it must be 4th of July. Okay. That making linotype to munitions when she was 14. She says, I was glad to sweep the floor for the war effort. I became pretty skilled. I learned to run a drill and a lathe, to do milling and filling. Dot's father fought in World War I. After being orphaned when he was a father, a coal miner, died of a black lung disease, and his mother died soon after. Her brother was killed in the Hurricane, a ship that chased German submarines. She likes to be called Dottie with her British accent. She says it sounds cozy. Asked about her accent, she says it's half limey and half hillbilly, but I'm American. Take it away, Ann.
Very good.
All right.
Dot, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's good. Let me just give you a couple of ways to orient you to the American Rosie movement. I started doing these interviews of American Rosies 13 years ago. Dot came to us after we'd made a film, so she didn't get to be in the film, and I'm so very sorry. So I'm really glad you're hosting her today. She's a very special Rosie because she did not work in America. She worked, of course, in London as an allied nation. One of the neat things about her story is that she can tell us what it was like in London through the war, which we typically don't hear from Rosies because they were in America. So Dot, let's start talking about your hometown was halfway between London and Scotland. Am I right about that?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the name of your town?
I lived outside of Manchester.
Yeah. And now tell us what you did in the factory and how did that work? How did you learn to do the work in the factory? You started out doing one thing and then ended up doing several things. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about it?
What'd you say?
What you tell about working in the factory?
But just long hours, hard work, no food.
Long hours, hard work, and no food. But now, how many were most of the girls pulled out of school at age 14 at that time?
Yes.
So just talk to us about what it was like to be a young girl in a factory. What was it like?
It was hard work. I think you did more crying than work for a while till you got the hang of it. When you realized you had no choice but to do it and get it over with. And that's what we did.
And were there more men than women or more women than men? Tell us about it.
More women.
And they were women of all ages?
What we had left was what they call the 4Fs. They didn't pass for some reason, but they put them in the plant, so they were a big help to us.
And then there were times when you could see the bombs coming, the bombs in France, right? Could you just stand out and look across the channel? How was that? What could you see from your factory?
Couldn't see nothing else but other factories, and it was in the factory section of England on the coast.
Well, when we talked with you different times about the factory work, you were more concerned about your brother being in the military. Tell us about your brother's story. He was in the military, but he unfortunately was killed after the military. Tell us about how that worked.
And my father was in World War I. It was my brother that was in World War II. He worked on the submarines, and he did that all through the war. He died after the war was over.
What's the name of submarine?
What's
the name of the submarine?
I don't know. I think
the Hurricane?
No, I can't think.
It was the ship.
Okay, it was the hood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The ship was, but then see, after he lost so many of his friends, it was volunteer work to be in the submarines because it was dangerous, and he volunteered for the submarines, and he was in that till the end of the war.
Tell the lady what happened to him at the end of the war, how he passed away.
How he passed away at the end of the war.
Killed, Mom. That's what she wanted to know.
How did your brother get killed? Was he in the submarine? And
Yes, he was. Got chopped off.
It's been so long ago.
He was
Um,
going through the air. His lungs burst whenever he was coming up for air in the submarine.
Right.
And he passed away.
Oh,
So-
my goodness.
Yeah.
Dot,
He was trapped in all the room and couldn't get loose.
A cover ship cut the front.
And he could only hold his breath so long. And by the time he got to the top, I guess he had to breathe.
so one of the things that we've learned from the few British Rosies, and of course they were called the Land Army, they didn't call them Rosies, is how difficult it was. You couldn't have even a hair of light showing. What were the blackouts like in London at that time?
Very scary, and very scary to little children. It all depends what age group you were. Little kids didn't understand why it was so black and why the bombs were dropping.
And how did they tell you what to do? How did you know when a blackout was coming?
Oh, your common sense will tell you better go hide.
But did you hear the bombs, or people knocked on the door and told you, or what?
If they had time. But see, they were already in France, and you can see France on a clear day from England. That's how they could get to us almost before we could go hide, because we're already in France.
And then when, what were the shelters like? Where were they?
Just holes in the ground.
And they were typically at go ahead.
The bathroom was a bucket.
Lord.
I knew it was coming around to bathrooms.
Those are the original porta potties.
Yes. I guess that's right. That's good. That's good. Consuela, how much time do we have? Because their story after the war is really very, very important too.
Well, we're going to have her to come back, because what she's sharing with us is extraordinary. I mean, very few of us know about the Rosies, but they more know about the Rosie the Riveters. And you see that logo all over the world, actually. And to have her on has just been amazing. But before you get into that, I wanted you to take a few minutes and tell us about the upcoming September 3rd. That's way important.
Yeah, it is.
And you're coming back within a week or two, so you can fill this more in with Dottie.
Well, what's happening is that we've chosen 6 cities or 6 communities, is probably better, that have done more than 5 years of work with us to help us find the Rosies, get them interviewed, but most important, to do projects in their community that leave a lasting record of who the Rosies were. So many people misunderstand and think that the Rosies were all Riveters, when that was probably no more than about a 10th or 12th of the percentage of women who did work. My mother, for example, inspected lenses. But the important thing here about September 3rd is that we chose 5 cities in the Eastern time zone, and I can explain that to you if you need to know, or why. But they're Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Brunswick, Maryland, Columbia, South Carolina, which is really at Camden, South Carolina, and Huntington, West Virginia, which is my hometown. Now, all of those towns have done significant work with us to help us launch a new type of social movement, meaning the American Rosie movement. It's new because it does not depend on one charismatic personality to lead, because I'm not charismatic and don't want to be, but it leads by getting people like you all involved in getting to know the Rosies. So the most important thing is that everybody here is hearing Dot's story, and everybody here is appreciating that. How old are you, Dot?
96? Yes.
96, yeah. And so these women are leaving us so fast. I heard a saying, it's from Somalia. When somebody dies in Somalia, they say, the library is gone. So in other words, that amount of information, it's more than one book that each one of these women carries. And I just think that we have to do our very, very most as a nation to pull together and do highest quality work to find these women, get their interviews, and leave permanent records. And
That's
of course,
right.
all being involved is really important in that. Now, the way Los Angeles ties to this is that every year at Labor Day, on or around Labor Day, we have rung bells for Rosies, so that different communities just basically take a bell. It doesn't matter whether it's a Carillon and like the National Cathedral that worked with us at 1 year, or the Liberty Bell. We've done that, but it's just the important thing that people in different communities just bring out a bell, make sure they really understand what the Rosie Legacy is about, which is pulling together, doing highest quality work, and doing it in a spirit of cooperation, because that's what the women did. They didn't do it for their own personal glory or in any way other than just to bring the boys home and shorten the war and pray for freedom. So the important thing is that Los Angeles, we'd been talking with Consuela, and I hope that she can gather a number of people to ring bells for Rosies. And I found today that I believe we have a Rosie who worked in 3 different defense factories in New York, who's there in Los Angeles, and you can gather, I hope you can gather on September 3rd and do that. If September 3rd doesn't work, you can do it over that weekend, so long as you keep a record of what you're doing and people begin to really understand the depth of what these women did. Of
You
course,
know,
We'll
parts
talk
of me.
about it in depth about that, because that's way important. We would love to represent here in Los Angeles.
that's
So
Just more-
beautiful.
let's talk about that more. Well, we're
No,
running out of time now, but I thank you so much for having Dottie on. She's just so charming. Dottie, you have to come back, girlfriend. You were wonderful. And we love that British accent.
So say something, what's a word that you had trouble with when you came to the United States, Dottie?
What?
What word did you have trouble with when you came to the United States?
Well, coupon,
I can't really think.
coupon, you still call it coupon. A banana's banana.
Oh, wait, pronounce things?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I understood what they were.
Yeah.
When her father, during the war, her father would touch her nose and say, keep your pecker up. And she unfortunately said that to her minister once, and he didn't understand.
Oh, no.
I've been in more trouble with
She's
that.
got some pretty funny stories to tell. When you get loosened up, she'll keep you in
It's all
stitches.
crap, and everybody keeps the pack.
Oh, well, that's the good stuff we want to hear. See,
It's good. They don't go over big.
And
And
of
I
course,
love how to the point she is. See, she don't hold back on anything. I love it.
and
Thank you.
one of the pieces of her story is having married an American soldier and having only seen movies about America with people catching cabs in New York City and all that sort of thing, and then finding herself up a West Virginia holler with an outhouse, and she didn't know how to use an outhouse. So the important thing is that Dottie is really a wonderful spirit, and she is such a positive person. So what we are trying to show in the American Rosie movement is that, yes, war is horrid, and yes, the implications of war and individual lives can be really hard. But we can pull together and we can understand each other in depth without being, we can be happy, but not slap happy. So we consider the American Rosie movement serious, but we also say that because of the women's really wonderful personalities and their authenticity, that this is a positive project. And that's one reason we call it Rosie Project rather than Rosie the Riveter, because it is
so
Rosie,
thrilled.
it's positive.
We're happy and proud and thankful and honored to have your segment on the show. You have no idea. It's a part of history. And once again, this little itty bitty show has an opportunity to have such historical people on, and that little Dottie, you're just precious. Thank you so much. And Ann, you too. I look forward to you coming. When are you coming back on again? About 2 weeks from now?
Dot, can you come on in 2 weeks?
Dot, can we do this again in 2 weeks?
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
That'd be lovely, see.
Okay.
All right. And
Thank
then you know, the last time you were on, you had me doing that whistle thing. So
Oh, yeah. Oh,
there you
that's
go.
right, Dot, that whistle's for you. Come on.
All right, if I could whistle.
He's whistling. And there was a phrase in Britain, I'm not sure I have it right, maybe Dot can correct me. The British soldiers were told by the Germans that all the Americans were taking their girls. And so the British would say, they're overdressed, overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you so
And
much.
she married one of those.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Take it
All right.
away.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Taylor.
That was Americans to a T.
Okay, Taylor. Thank you.
Now, okay. Now it's time to hand it back over to Matt to acknowledge a special American Invisible Hero.
Recently, I spoke of the POW MIA flag being returned to the White House. This segment is focused on those missing in action. The Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency announced June 18th that the 8 sailors killed at Pearl Harbor on the USS Oklahoma had been accounted for.
Never go.
On December 7th, 1941, these men were assigned to the battleship USS Oklahoma, which was moored at Ford Island, Pearl Harbor, when the ship was attacked by Japanese aircraft. USS Oklahoma sustained multiple torpedo hits, which caused it to quickly capsize. The attack on the ship resulted in the deaths of 429 crewmen. From December 1941 to June 1944, Navy personnel recovered the remains of the deceased crew, which were subsequently interred in local cemeteries. In September 1947, tasked with recovering and identifying fallen U.S. personnel in the Pacific Theater, members of the American Graves Registration Service disinterred the remains of U.S. casualties from 2 cemeteries and transferred them to the Central Identifications Laboratory in Schofield Barracks. The laboratory staff was only able to confirm the identifications of 35 men from the USS Oklahoma at that time. They subsequently buried the unidentified remains in 46 plots at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, known as Punch Bowl in Honolulu. These men's names are recorded on the courts of the missing at the Punch Bowl, along with the others who are missing from World War II. A rosette will be placed next to their names to indicate that they have been accounted for, and they are no longer America's missing heroes.
Wow. That's so touching, as always. Taylor, you're going to tell us about the big news. We're starting to wind down now.
We have big news. Operation Confidence. Excuse me, let me just do it. Operation Confidence, America's Invisible Hero, now has its own sportswear attire. You can locate them at operationconfidence.org website. And there'll be more American Invisible Hero products coming soon.
Okay, we had some pictures to show. We have some t-shirts and we have some sweatsuits, and all of that's for sale to be a part of our American Invisible Heroes. Those are some cups that we have. All of this is online. So feel free to go online, and there's our logo on and our our attire that we're all excited about. So go to operationconfidence.org into the store, and you'll see these wonderful things that are being sold in name of Operation Confidence and the American Invisible Heroes. All proceeds go directly to our nonprofit organization to assist our veterans who are disabled and homeless. We thank you so much. We're going to start winding down now. Brooke, you want to take it away?
Thanks, Connie. Before Ms. Connie closes, let's see our sponsor PVA's video. Charles?
Woohoo! Well, there we go. What happened, Charles? Yes,
All
we
right,
have.
here we go. I got it. Here we go.
Okay.
Where you at over here? Yep, there we go.
PVA, California chapter USA.
Let's start it over.
Long Beach, PVA, California chapter USA. The city by the waterfront, where the veterans work and play. Long Beach, PVA, California chapter USA. The city by the waterfront, where the veterans work and play. Long Beach, PVA, California chapter. Long Beach, PVA, California chapter.
All right. Thank you, Charles.
My boys at the PVA.
That's right, huh?
That's right.
Okay. We want to thank you. And we want to now turn it over to Brooke as we started to wind down.
Thanks, Connie. I would like to remind our listeners about our amazing advertisement rates. We have 10-second and 30-second advertisement slots available. Please email info@operationconfidence.org for more information. That email address again is info@operationconfidence.org. And visit the Operation Confidence website at www.operationconfidence.org and go to our resource page for some amazing resources. Also, I'd like to inform our viewers and radio listeners about Amazon Smile. When making your next purchase on Amazon, please go to Amazon Smile and type in Operation Confidence in the Choose Your Organization donation box. Amazon will make a small donation to Operation Confidence.
Okay, thank you so much. And as always, we want to remind our listeners and viewers that our goal for this show is to raise awareness about Operation Confidence's mission, which is to provide services including stable housing with a wide range of supportive services, including employment opportunities, counseling, and much more for those, especially those who are disabled veterans and experience homelessness. So if you want to get involved with our grassroots efforts, please email us at info@operationconfidence.org. That's info@operationconfidence.org. And don't forget, as Brooke said, visit our website at www.operationconfidence.org, not only for the resources, but also to our new store. Rather, I make sure that you pass the word about our t-shirts and sweatsuit line. We'll have more on that site soon, but right now, this is how we're starting. We want to thank everyone, especially our visitors, our guest speakers, and of course, our hosts. Thank you so much. We had a great show, guys.
Great. Thanks for everybody. Take it easy out there on the 4th.
That's right, huh?
Tonight. That's right.
Signing off now.
You're listening to Operation Confidence Radio Talk Show, America's